Hey guys, so this is going to be the video that kind of just goes over a bunch of random characters of mine. Some of them are old, some of them are new, and it's going to kind of talk about their story, since I realize not all of you really know about their story. So to start off, I'll start with Benny, since he's one of my more recent characters. So as I said before, I don't have a final design for him. Here's his more human form. He has a very kind of like pale white skin and his bunny-like features with the teeth and the ears. But then he has this form, which is straight up bunny. It's this dark, shadowy creature with a bit of a strange kind of smile. He's very awkward and shy, but honestly, he just kind of wants to make a friend. He is a nightmare creature, and in the universe he exists in, nightmares and dreams are like these creatures, and when the person is having a really bad dream that feels like super lifelike, that's usually the nightmares, and they're created by people that have bad dreams. Benny, however, doesn't want to be a nightmare. He doesn't like scaring people, and just kind of wants to make a friend. However, his buds in the nightmare realm, they're very rough, they're aggressive, and they enjoy being scary. And he kind of finds it hard to fit in, so he often leaves and goes to Earth and tries to befriend people. But because of his scary appearance, he finds it hard to make friends. So that's Benny. He can shapeshift into different forms. He likes to look like a little toy plushie sometimes, so people think he's, cute and cuddly and small. Sometimes he can look like a rabbit to get to places faster. He can hop through shadows and stuff to, travel around. But that's Benny, basically his stuff. I have like a bunch of pictures just laying out right here that of characters all over. I don't know if I've shown this one on here before. It's because I've never drawn a good picture of him. But it's a character that I feel like has a lot of potential, and this is not his final design. These are like really old, bad sketches of him. But basically, his name is Mimic. I don't know if I've talked about him on here or not. If I did, it must have been a while ago. But I will figure out a final design for him. This is one of my other kid characters, and basically, when I first created him, it was on another roleplay game, of course. It was an animal one, and so I chose a cat. And basically, he's this experiment, copycat, and basically he can shapeshift into any person, anyone, and copy their voice, the way they look, and the way they speak, the way they move, all of that. But he escaped the facility that he had been created in. He's very skittish, very awkward. He's pretty scared of the outside world because he was never treated rightly and doesn't think others will treat him right either. Now, I don't have a straight story for him yet. That's just kind of how it is. If I ever do get a chance to work on this character more, I'll probably make something more detailed and a little bit better, something that makes more sense. But that's Mimic, and maybe I'll draw a better design for him, because this is it's not the best. Speaking of cats, good old Toby. I've drawn him recently too. One of my other recent characters is Tobias. He went by the cat for a while. He was one of my most recent OCs, and I've been using him quite a bit with my friends. And so Tobias he starts out as the villain of the story. He's not the most reasonable person. He's very illogical often, kind of paranoid most of the time, and gets into arguments very easily. Tobias's story is that when he's a demon, but he has a very cat-like appearance. He's not a cat, it's just how he looks. But the only power he really has is kind of teleportation. He kind of poofs and can appear in different places, but he can only do that if he's touching the ground and knows where he is and where he's going. So he can't just get out of any situation. There has to be some things he has to meet. The reason he starts out as a bad guy is because of what kind of happened to him in the past. It starts out when he's a child and he lives in the underworld because, he's a demon. And his parents, they weren't bad or anything, but they never paid much attention to him. They didn't give him the attention that he needed. So that's one of the things that he also does. He really loves attention. He does things for attention and likes to be the center of attention, even when he doesn't always mean to be. What happened to him, though, was he had a bit of a gambling problem. He would often go to like places and gamble money and stuff like that. Until one day he made a deal with the wrong person. He had bet a bunch of stuff that he didn't have, because, you know, kids don't really have that much money. But he bet a lot of money that he didn't have, and he couldn't pay it when he lost. And so the person that he was gambling with decided to take his own payment and take him instead. He had a strange kind of like magical powder or sand. He uses this often, called sand magic, and it's just like kind of potion. And it turned him into a plush toy. And the man did not release him and kept him as that. He sold him as a toy, and just for years he was just trapped as this little cat plushie. Nobody was able to hear him. He couldn't move. He couldn't talk. And he just spent a lot of time trapped like that. And it kind of drove his sanity down. He was then greeted by one of these dark spirits that offered to help him out. Here, I got a picture here that kind of has that there. One of his buds, and they release him from the form that he was trapped in. In return, he gets to work with them. They not brainwash per se, but they convince him that they're the good guys and that they're helping him, and that to do good he has to make the world right. He convinces them that everybody that he ever encountered, they all heard him as he cried out for help, but they chose to ignore him. They basically make him like hate everyone and everything. And so he goes out and gets revenge on people, giving them the same fate that he had, trapping them in these plush-like forms and keeping them, until he encounters the characters in the other story, which are my friends' characters. I would talk about their characters, but I don't really like talking about my friends' OCs, because, like, you know, that's their people, and I don't want to make anything incorrect. So if you have questions about them, you should ask my buddies. I already told you Sketched Butter. She does a lot of characters that match with these guys. The other person doesn't have a YouTube channel, but with their permission, I could totally just ask them stuff. But yeah, that's Tobias. I have quite a few more characters to go through, so this might be a long video. I'm going to go with an older one that I haven't talked about too much recently. But we're going to talk about Layla. So we've only seen her with the Runaway series that I have, and these are also, just want to say, none of these except for Layla and Little Shadow here are my characters. The rest of these are some old friends that I have, but I don't really have much contact with them anymore, so I kind of have to make up whatever I can to match their characters. So in a separate video, I'll go in more in depth about the Runaway series and what I plan to do with it. But for right now, I just want to focus on Layla. In this universe, there's all these types of magics and monsters and stuff like that, and she is a shadow monster. Now, in the Runaways comic, you got to see a bit of this guy, but this is the Darkness. I don't have many photos of him, and the ones I do have are kind of old. See, 2019, so they're not the best, but the Darkness is basically, in this universe, all the magics, they have a leader, and he is the leader of dark magic. Dark magic, however, is frowned upon, and people don't like it. They think anyone that has it is evil. And he's on a conquest for power, taking over planets and, you know, making it all just dark magic. He created the shadow monsters. They have an entire ritual and stuff like that I'll go into later, and he creates these things, the shadow monsters. Each of them have their own types of abilities and powers, and they all serve him. They all enjoy serving him, too. They will risk their lives for him, put themselves on the line. They don't really care as long as it's helping the Darkness. And Layla is one of these characters. Now, I need to work a bit on her story, but what I have right now is they had prophesied that one day a shadow would be created that carried both dark and light magic, and by taking its soul, the Darkness would be able to rule both those powers. Because the only enemy the Darkness had was light magic, because light magic was the only thing that's as strong as the dark. And if he was able, when this shadow would be born, he would consume their soul and become more powerful. Layla was the one that was created that carried both those souls. And because of that, not a split personality per se, but it was kind of like two souls in one person. So it's Layla, but there's also another part of her. Layla's the one that's in control, though, and the other person I named Shadow. that I'll go into depth later, but they both kind of just are always together, and they